Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Clear Vista Financial are not affiliated. You are listening to the Spend Life Well Show with Kingdom Advisor Mark Trice and Jesse Hamilton. Mark and Jesse are passionate about seeing you spend life well. If you want to save for and invest in the future, then this show is for you. Call now and join the conversation with your financial questions. 512-452-1120. 512-452-1120. Mark and Jesse will answer your questions and discuss practical financial principles based on a foundation of biblical wisdom. So if you're ready to quit worrying about your finances and begin to spend life well, then call 512-452-1120. And let's meet your host, Mark Trice and Jesse Hamilton.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Certified Kingdom Advisor Mark Trice, and I want to welcome you to the Spend Life Well Show, where we apply biblical wisdom to your financial life. I'm joined in the studio today normally by my co-host, Jesse Hamilton, but he is taking the week off to attend a conference, and we're glad he's able to do that with his wife, and hope he's having fun. So today it's just me, so that means I need you to call in. I need somebody to talk to here in the studio. Otherwise, you have to listen to me for the program today, and I'd rather talk to you. So you can give us a call right here in the studio. That's 512-452-1120. That's 452-1120. Today's scripture verse that we want to bring up today is James 1:5 that says, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. So let's just go to the Lord today and ask him for wisdom as we talk about financial issues and things that are going on in this world. We'll seek the Lord's wisdom in those things. Give us a call here in the studio, 452-1120. You can also email us at radio@spendlifewell.com. That's radio@spendlifewell.com. And you can find a whole host of resources on our website at spendlifewell.com. That's spendlifewell.com. And we'll get back to you if you have a question. You can also sign up for some of our upcoming webinars that we have scheduled. Our next webinar, it's a really important event. We're going to be getting into really IRA planning and strategies that you can use and follow to save taxes and get more out of your retirement accounts. And that's coming up this Tuesday evening. That's May 17th at 6 p.m. If you'd like to register for that free informational webinar, you can go to our website at spendlifewell.com and go to the events page, and you can register right there. So I'm glad you've chosen to join us here for a few minutes today. Grab a cup of coffee. If you're at home, if you're in the car, turn up a little louder so you can hear everything. Maybe your kids will listen in and learn something too. But let's get into our program. But give us a call here at 452-1120, 452-1120. And I would love to chat about what's going on in your world and your finances. So, folks, once again, you may have been following the markets this week. Another crazy week, and it was reminding me of one of those rides at Six Flags. The really giant roller coasters and things, and the ups and downs, the swerves, the things that jostle you to the side of the roller coaster car. It was kind of a crazy week. And let's go over some of the indices this week as we get into today's program. The S&P 500 ended the week on a positive note, but for the week was actually down 2.42%. So another down week in what has been a series of down weeks over the last few months since the beginning of the year. Since the beginning of the year, the S&P 500, which is the 500 largest capitalized companies on that index, is down a little over 15.5%. Now, that is in what we call correction territory, and those happen from time to time and are normal. But if you haven't been looking at your portfolio, you need to take a look at that to see if there's any changes you need to make, or talk to your financial advisor about what they're doing to protect your assets should the market go down further. The NASDAQ Composite Index, which is compiled of a lot of different technology companies and things, it actually ended up the week on a positive note, but for the entire week, the index was down 2.8%, and we are down for the year. The NASDAQ is in bear market territory, being down over 24.5%, 24.5% in the red. And that's significant. We don't have bear markets very often, but when they do, it is significant and can really wreak some havoc with your portfolio. Bonds cooled off a little bit this week. It was a little less volatile. Uh, the 10-year Treasury yields began to fall just a little bit this week and then ended the week back up. The 20-year Treasury that we measure was up for the week just a little bit, but still down over 20% for the year. And many of you are holding bonds in your portfolio, and that's really dragging on the performance of your portfolio. We look at those things and we think that it's time for some adjustments, probably, if you haven't already done that with your financial advisor. The New York Stock Exchange, those are the top 30 companies that we look at. The Dow Jones Index, that was down only 1.99% for the week, but still down well over 11% for the year. So give us a call here in the studio, 452-1120, 452-1120. That's area code 512. And we love to chat with you about what's going on in your world. So, we had the Friday's markets really popped up on news or comments from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. And he said, well, we're still not really talking about a 3/4 point interest rate hike right now. And of course, that was good news for the markets who ran up the markets this on yesterday in trading. But is the Fed too late? Is the Fed missing out on inflation? I think those in our government have really been making it known that there's a complete disconnect about what's really going on in inflation. We saw the inflation reports come out this week. They were down or up about 8.1% over the last 12 months. They did exceed expectations by a little bit. I think the forecast was for an increase of on a monthly basis of 0.5%, and it was actually 0.6. So still, that's significant when you analyze all that information, and it should be a cause of concern. We're seeing lots of shortages. My goodness, we're seeing things that are going on, and all our administration can do in Washington is say it's the greedy corporations that are causing inflation. Yes, believe it or not, our dear president basically said that he's trying to fight inflation, but the only way to do that is to raise corporate taxes. The two have nothing to do with each other, so I'm not for sure why he said those comments, but there's a lot of things that I've been following, White House press briefings and things, and there's not a lot of common economic sense coming out of Washington, D.C. They're in denial, and inflation is going to be a problem for some time to come. Well, how does that affect your portfolio? Well, in a number of different ways. Inflation is not good for a stock environment. It's also not good for bonds, especially when the Federal Reserve starts raising short-term interest rates. That will have a ripple effect, throughout throughout your bond portfolio. And I was reading an article from Bloomberg this week, and the title of it was "Crazy Markets are Shredding Wall Street Stock and Bond Forecasts." At the beginning of, at the end of every year, and the beginning of every year, we have all these prognosticators that come out that they know what's going on. They've got the crystal ball that you need to listen to them and listen to what they're saying. And every one of them, so many of them are optimistic. They were expecting that the S&P 500 would add 5 or more percent in 2022. And on Thursday of this week, that S&P 500 index plunged as much as 19.5% year to date. Now, that was an intraday type thing. but it still is significant. And, the bond strategists that they weren't really didn't have any more of a clear view either. Um, Interest rate strategists and economists were calling for the 10-year treasury rates to rise to about 2.2% by June. They were expecting some raises in overnight Fed fund rates from the Federal Reserve, but not as much as they have. They were expected to rise by 2% by June, but yields took out that level in early February and even touched as high as 3.2%. This is the 10-year treasury rates, even touched as high as 3.2% just this month. Now, it's really hard for these prognosticators to capture these turns that are happening in our economy and with the markets and so forth. But why is it that every time you go on the news and you listen to those prognosticators, they're always positive. They're always positive that the market only goes up. And I think inflation really has taken a lot of folks by surprise. Not only us that in our shopping and going to the grocery store and the cost of goods and services are going up, but just all these prognosticators, economists, and so forth that was saying that the economy is really going to grow. What we saw last week in our show, we talked about the economy shrinking in the first quarter. Well, that's not the best news, but why is it that we always are only pointing up? And I think there's this belief that the stock markets only go up, and we know from historical times, from historical data, that markets go up, markets go down, markets go sideways. We saw in the 2000s, and just because this is what's happened in the past does not mean that this is what will happen year after year. And so I was reading an article by Barry Ritholtz. His article was Hindsight Capital. And it was basically talking about, all these prognosticators that at the beginning of the year talk about what's going to happen in the markets and so forth. And it's really designed to gather enthusiasm about a particular investment or the markets in general. Because if you're pessimistic about the market, you might not invest, right? So, we look at these things and we have to kind of laugh sometimes because nobody ever goes back and checks these prognostications at the end of the year to see how accurate they were. And now, about the time when the market's correcting, the Nasdaq's in bear market territory, you'll see lots of experts popping up on the news and so forth with what I call working for Hindsight Capital. And now, Hindsight Capital is a fictitious company name it's meant to be a little bit facetious. So Hindsight Capital sends out its employees, its press, PR people, fund managers, etc., and they never mention the process. They don't discuss what is really skill or luck or anything that could be repeatable. The intellectually defendable philosophies are not on the agenda, nor are any of the unknowns or random events, right? But they always give specific advice and actionable advice, often too late to act upon. So, you look at these things and we look at, they come back and say, hey, if you had only done this, you would be fine. And we're coming out of a 30-year bull market in bonds that began back in 1982. Is it gone? Is it dead? Well, it's getting there. And any professional money manager who could not see this coming must be blind or dumb. This is what Hindsight Capital tells you, right? We did not know that the bull market, the 30-year or 40-year bull market actually, is dead. No. And in real estate, they tell you if you sold your house in 2018 or 2019, you were a fool, given the obvious post-pandemic rise in prices. Of course, it's always hindsight. And then also, tech, it's going to come in. It had gone too far and not too long, was going to suffer a pullback, but they saw that. You didn't. And all I'm saying this is be wary of all the talking heads on television because they are talking with data that's in the past and they don't know what's going to happen in the future. Hindsight as I always say sometimes, hindsight is 20/20. And we have perfect clarity when we're able to look back in the past and say, "This is what happened," because that's what happened. So I would caution you to drown out the noise, shut out the noise of all the media out there. Know that if you have a plan with your advisor and you're sticking to it, that plan should come through. But I would ask your advisor very soon is what plan do they have to protect you from downside markets, both in bonds, both in stocks right now, because that's what's happening in the markets. And so I want to encourage you to have a conversation with your advisor. And if you don't have an advisor, you can give us a call or you can visit our website at spendlifewell.com. Spendlifewell.com. When we come back, I want to get into one of the most misunderstood topics about retirement, and that's Social Security. We're going to go through a number of different things, and we're going to take your calls from our listeners. So call in right now, 452-1120, 452-1120. When we come back, we're going to get into Social Security. We're going to talk about the myths that are out there. We're also going to talk about things and help you understand it a little better so that you can maximize the Social Security benefit that you deserve. I want to thank you for listening to us today on the Spend Life Well Show. Give us a call in here in the studio, 452-1120, 452-1120. We will be right back after this break.
Do you worry about your finances? Wonder how you're going to get your kids through college, or just simply dreaming about the day you can retire? Hi, I'm Mark Trice from Clear Vista Financial. At Clear Vista, our team of financial advisors help you worry less by guiding you down the road towards your financial goals. Connect with the Clear Vista team by going to our website at spendlifewell.com.
Securities through Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Clear Vista Financial are not affiliated.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to the Spend Life Well Show. I'm your host, Certified Kingdom Advisor Mark Trice. I'm glad you've chosen to join us today. Just as a reminder, our guiding scripture today is James 1:5. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. You know, that kind of is our mantra here in this office, or one of the things that guides us in this office, because we want to try to help as many folks as possible through their financial lives. That's why we started the Spend Life Well show, and we're glad that you're joining us this morning. So, we talked about at the end of the last segment, we're going to talk about Social Security for a good part of the show here this morning. And we love talking about Social Security for near term or newly retired folks because people really do make, and they potentially could hurt their retirement by making bad decisions and costly decisions about Social Security. And it's an area that is misunderstood. There's a lot of people out there talking about Social Security, but sometimes they're giving you basic advice. And even when you go to the Social Security Administration, if you can actually get an appointment, that's a whole nother story. If when you go to the Social Security Administration, the folks there are required by law not to give you advice. And so you really can't talk to them and say, "What do you think?" Because they'll just slide the paperwork over and have you sign up at whatever time you're talking about. And so it's important for you to have a plan for the when and how you're going to draw Social Security so that you can get every dollar out of the system that you deserve, and you maximize that income that you'll receive when you're in retirement. Because for most folks, on average, there's some data that Social Security put out there, or is the Retirement Benefit Institute, I think, that put that out there, that basically said retirees, about 35% to 40% of their monthly income in retirement comes from Social Security. So wouldn't it make sense that you maximize it and get every dollar you deserve? Oftentimes when we do live workshops, we'll ask the audience, hey, so how many different ways are there to draw Social Security? if you're married? And the typical answer comes out as like, well, 3. And they're thinking of 62, their full retirement age, or maybe 70 at the latest. And some people might get really aggressive and bold and say 10. But the reality is that there are, if you're a married couple, there are over 22,000 different ways to draw Social Security benefits. And you heard me right. 22,000 different combinations that are out there if you're a married couple to draw your Social Security benefits. So let me ask you, which one is right for you? And that's what we're going to talk about in the program today. So you have all these different claiming options. Those decisions have far-reaching consequences. They impact both spouses, even if you're not married, you were divorced and married for a certain period of time. Your choices can be impacted by the ex-spouse. Well, actually, it's the other way around. But we also want to dispel that the system's not bankrupt. There are some changes that have to be done, and Congress keeps kicking that can down the road, but it's not bankrupt right now, nor is it a Ponzi scheme. And I've heard all sorts of things out on the internet that it's a Ponzi scheme. And the thing you have to remember is, more than likely, your friends are not experts in Social Security. My biggest challenge as a financial advisor in trying to help people with Social Security, my biggest competitor is the person that sits behind you at church and gives you their opinion. Because after all, they're the same age as you. Why shouldn't it be the same? Well, that's maybe not true. If there's 22,000 different combinations to draw Social Security, if you're married, which one's right for you? And a lot of people want to know, is Social Security going to be there for me when I retire? I know some of our younger listeners but have that question. I'm going to pause for just a minute here because Antonio has joined us. Antonio, you've got a question about different types of alternative healthcare not insurance, but bill sharing ministries.
Correct.
So it looks like you said your question was, is there a difference between Samaritan's Purse and MediShare?
Not only a difference, the government keeps mailing things as well, telling you about all these other ancillary add-ons that you can incorporate into your Medicare benefit. And so if you're a healthy person and you've never accessed the healthcare system because you stayed healthy for some reason, I really don't have a great need to do anything additional. But obviously, my only big concern is something catastrophically happens,
Sure,
car accident or so forth. So I didn't know the difference between those two organizations because they both sound alike, and I don't have the ability to differentiate.
Well, first of all, and I've used one of these. I can't tell you which one I've used in the past, but that could be considered an endorsement or whatever. Both are great if you're looking for an alternative to traditional healthcare. Now, it is different. So, you don't have deductibles and things like that. You have amount that your family is responsible for. And both of those should cover you in most catastrophic situations. But you are out of pocket for a certain amount, and there's no things like a copay or anything like that. I encourage you to talk to both of them. But I have to ask you, Antonio, are you above or below 65?
Above.
You're above. Okay. Well, for you, MediShare and Samaritan's Purse will not cover you because you are 65 and eligible for Medicare. And you need to make sure that if you have not signed up for that, you want to go ahead and potentially sign up for that. There are some cheaper alternatives for that, but you will be required to pay Medicare Part B, assuming that you have enough credits, work history, and so forth. But I don't believe that MediShare or Samaritan's Purse will cover you beyond 65. That's one thing right there.
They actually said they would.
Well, I'm not familiar with that. I can look into that and get back to you.
Yeah, they actually gave me a call and discussed these extravagant, pick whoever your doctor you want to be, and they actually talked about being 20% that you do have to pay through Medicare.
Well, there are also all sorts of co-pays, deductibles, co-insurance, and things like that if you don't have the right type of Medicare. So they may be offering some type of supplemental coverage for Medicare retirees. I have not heard that yet. I'll have to look into that, Antonio. But
Okay.
there's not a lot of a huge difference. I think one of the biggest things, because we've used one of these in the past, and is you have to submit all your paperwork just for them to keep up with how much you've been spending, so that once you reach that max family share that they have, then they'll start kicking on some of the bill sharing part of that ministry. And so I think both of them are great. If you call up and talk to them, they will explain all that stuff. I agree. It is so confusing. I mean, how many commercials have we seen lately? And thank you for your call, Antonio. I'm going to let you go and just talk for just a second. How many of you all have seen the commercials? I mean, gosh, there's one for Fonzie was on there, Tom Selleck, all the different actors that are out there saying that call and check your zip code. Folks, it's a sales pitch. They don't want to get you on the line to try to make sure that you're using their coverage, not somebody else's. So be wary of that. The Christian bill sharing ministries like MediShare and Samaritan's Purse, I think, are good for you if you do not have access to traditional insurance. We had it for a number of years for our family and for our employees as well. But it's not for everybody. So you have to make sure that's the right fit for you for that. So
Here's the big question I have is I've never used anything. I've never had a hospital. I'm not bragging or anything. I'm saying I've never had a hospital bill. I've never had a surgery. I've never had any of these things. I've stayed healthy. So I don't understand how. Are you saying that I have to have a certain amount of medical issues or
no,
expenses?
well, you have to pay out of pocket until you reach your max share, which is what we call if you have traditional insurance, that's what we call deductible. Both of those companies don't offer that. It's called a share because they are bill sharing ministries for health expenses. Now, the other question I have though, Antonio, is you really need to think about Medicare because I know you're healthy and so forth, but you didn't sign up at 65, and if you need it later on, there are lifetime penalties for not signing up at 65 if you weren't covered by a workplace employer plan. And so you have to be careful about that. You can give us a call in our office sometime. Just go to spendlifewell.com. We can talk to you a little bit more about that in more detail. But thank you for your call. I appreciate it.
Sure. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
All right. Have a great day. All right. So, Antonio had a great point here. You know what? There's all sorts of different options out there. But when you're 65, Medicare should be your main choice unless you want to self-pay for the rest of your life. Medicare implies some penalties for those that don't sign up on time. And that's one of the things we'll probably get, if we have time, we'll get to that. But, a lot of folks want to know when they're supposed to sign up. They might miss it. That's a problem if you miss that deadline. So when should you apply for Social Security? And how do you maximize those benefits? And will Social Security be enough to live on? Well, I want to point out, and I did read an article that in 2021, this came from the Social Security system itself. In 2021 was the first time there's the OASDI Trust Fund, and 2021 was the first year that we've had where income did not exceed expenditures. In other words, the fund had been growing for the past many, many, many years until this last year. So we are now in a phase where we are spending, in other words, we're paying out more in Social Security benefits than we were receiving in income from the taxes that you take from your paychecks. Okay, so it's anticipated that Congress has to do something to the Social Security system to modify it in some way by 2034. 2034 is what the estimates have been, that we will not be able to sustain rates at the current levels in 2034 if Congress doesn't do something. So what can they do? Well, And they've been doing that lately. They can increase the maximum earnings that are subject to the Social Security tax. This year in 2022, it's $147,000. If you make below that, you're going to pay the Social Security tax. If you make above that, you don't pay that Social Security tax. They might also raise the normal retirement age. Now, for most of you that are nearing Social Security age, it's currently you're probably somewhere between the age of 66 and 67. For those folks that are, born between 1943 and 1954, it's probably 66, somewhere in there, maybe a few months. Or if you're born after 1960, that full retirement age normal retirement age is 67. Now that's important to know because a lot of good things can happen before that age and a lot of bad things, after that age, and a lot of bad things can happen before that age. They might also lower benefits for future retirees. Now, I don't think that they're going to do that for current retirees because they know you vote and they don't want to upset you in any way so that you come and I used to be able to say, we might march on Washington with our pitchforks and other implements, but that would be kind of taboo given the fact that we had people march on Washington a few years ago. They also might reduce the cost of living adjustments, and Congress has manipulated these things over the years, a lot of times in the middle of the night, of how they calculate inflation for your Social Security increase. Now, that is something that they measure in the 3 months from July, August, and September. They'll measure inflation during that time. And this last year, inflation was high enough that Social Security recipients received a 5.9% cost of living adjustment. And that also applies to future retirees as well, because you may not be drawing now, but you noticed an increase in your benefit if you looked at your statements this year and you got that cost of living adjustment. But the point I want to make here is that Social Security is inflation protected income. You've been paying that premium in every paycheck. So let's be smart about when you collect it. And the thing is Social Security can offer you income that you can't outlive, right? You're going to receive that benefit your entire life. Now, if your monthly benefit is $2,000 today and you live for another 20 years, you're going to receive over $602,000 in lifetime benefits. You live another 30 years, it's got over $1 million. And that's assuming a simple 2% cost of living adjustment, which may or may not happen. So it's really important to think about that as Social Security as inflation protected income. So if I draw early, my benefit's going to be lower than if I draw later. So how do they calculate their benefits? Well, it's actually pretty simple, and we'll get into that more in the break. But it depends on how much you earned over your working career and the age at which you apply for benefits. So what they're looking at primarily is they're looking at the highest 35 years of your work history. And that is averaged out. There's some more that goes into the calculation. I'm just trying to make it a little simpler. If you want to learn about your benefits, go to ssa.gov, that's socialsecurity.gov, and you can create an online account. You can download your most recent statement. And I think that will be very helpful for everyone to have. It's something we ask all our clients to do is get that statement because it goes into calculating what your future income might be and how much you need from other sources. So when we come back in our final segment, we will cover and talk more about Social Security, get into a few more details, but you probably have questions about Social Security. Give us a call here in the studio, 452-1120. That's 452-1120, or visit us on the web at spendlifewell.com. We'll be right back.
Did you know the Bible talks about money and possessions over 2,000 times? Well, maybe we should pay attention. Hi, I'm Mark Trice at Clear Vista Financial. We work with clients to steward their resources based on a foundation of biblical wisdom. Learn more about Clear Vista Financial by visiting our website at spendlifewell.com. That's spendlifewell.com.
Securities through Cambridge Investment Research Inc., a broker-dealer member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Clear Vista Financial are not affiliated.
Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Clear Vista Financial are not affiliated.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Spend Life Well show, where we apply biblical wisdom to your financial journey. I'm Certified Kingdom Advisor Mark Trice. Thanks for bringing the program. Hey, on the last segment, Antonio was asking us about Christian bill sharing ministries. Do they have a supplemental type of coverage? And I love it when our callers are smarter than me, because I learned something new today. And Antonio was talking about that as an option. I had told him, I said, hey, I'm not really that familiar with it, but in fact, they do. At least Medishare does have a bill sharing ministry that can act as a supplemental to your Medicare. Now, Antonio, if you're still listening, you want to go check that out. But one of the criteria here is it's meant to be a Medicare supplemental. So if you must have Medicare Parts A and B. And I give us a call next week, Antonio, and we'll talk you through that. But Medicare is Part A and B is the primary component of that. And in order to have the supplemental insurance, you must have Parts A and B. Part A is free if we have if you have enough work credits, 40 credits. That's 40 quarters of work history. Part B this year, I believe, is $177 a month or so and a few pennies. And then your supplemental, depending on your age, might cost anywhere from nothing to, I'm looking at Medishare right now. If you're between the ages of 65 and 74, it's about $99 a month. So, Antonio, thank you for calling in, because you taught the show host something today that he wasn't aware of. That's awesome. So appreciate your call. Hey, when we left, we were talking about, and by the way, you call us and maybe you can stump the host. We should have a segment on that, Daniel, that we talk about stump the host. Our number here in the studio is 452-1120, 452-1120, and give us a call. We'd love to talk. Today it's just me. Jesse's at a conference, and we were talking about Social Security. And there are parts of Social Security that you need to understand. First of all, your monthly benefit is called your primary insurance amount. Now, remember, Social Security, well, you may not know this, Social Security was created as an insurance policy against starvation and to protect the widows and the indigent and so forth back in, it was actually enacted in the mid to late 1930s. It was put into place, I believe, in 1939, 1940. And it's evolved as from an insurance policy. They've never changed the language. So that's why your monthly benefit is called your primary insurance amount, which is the amount that you will receive at your full retirement age if you wait till then to draw it. It's actually kind of complicated. Social Security has there are 7 different ways that they make the calculation. So be careful if you're going to some other website besides Social Security. Want to make sure that you are getting accurate information. The best place is to go to the Social Security site and create an account there so that you can talk about, find out what your benefit would be at your full retirement age. So a lot of people have questions like, well, and a lot of fellows come in and it's like, well, I gotta start drawing at 62, which is the earliest that you can draw unless you're disabled. I gotta start drawing at age 62 or I won't break even. Well, that's only partially correct. Drawing at 62 for most of you is not the best option. And we've talked to hundreds of families and hundreds of individuals about when's the optimal time to draw Social Security. Why, should I draw at 62 or should I wait to full retirement age, which is different for everybody, or even 70? Well, that kind of depends, right? And there's a number of factors that you have to think about. Your health status, your life expectancy. We don't know when the good Lord is going to call us home, but we do have some patterns. If you're diligently trying to be healthy and so forth, and all the ladies in your family live to be 104, then there's a good chance that maybe you as a female might live long too. I don't know when, but that's something to consider. Also, too, your need for income. How much other savings and investments do you have to supplement your Social Security income? Also, do you plan to work or not after you retire? I know a lot of people, they'll retire and just simply shift to a different career. And that's a great strategy too for a lot of people. The other factor, and this is the big one that a lot of folks don't think about, and that's your survivor needs. You know, Mr. Social Security guy, you're drawing at 62. You were the higher wage earner in the family. So you took a lower benefit, which can be, if your full retirement age is 66, you're giving yourself a 25% permanent pay cut because you drew at 62. And you decided, well, I need to get that money now. And you have a wife, and she lives a lot longer than you. That can impact her benefits if her benefit was much lower than yours to begin with, or it can be the opposite. But a lot of folks don't realize they're making that mistake until it's too late, because you can't make any changes once you've done it, except maybe in the first 12 months. So for most of you, your full retirement age is 66, and if you're born after 1960 or later, it's 67. So that means right now there are a number of folks that were born in 1960 that are reaching the first year of eligibility for their Social Security benefit. That's age 62. I can't believe that, because that means a lot of friends of mine are eligible for Social Security. And so if you apply early for those benefits and your full retirement age is 67, you're giving yourself a 30% pay cut. And if you wait until your full retirement age, you're going to receive 100% of your eligible benefit. Now, is that the most you can receive from Social Security? Absolutely not. It depends on what your full retirement age, but if your full retirement age was 66 and you delay until age 70, you're going to get an additional 32% on your monthly benefit. So sometimes we look at these things, and remember, you can go to socialsecurity.gov and look at your own benefit. But I'm going to give you a comparison here. If you draw your benefit, let's just say that your primary insurance amount at your full retirement age is $3,000. All right. And your full retirement age is 67. If you draw at 62, remember, you're eligible for $3,000 or more. If you draw at age 62, you're going to get $2,100 a month. But if you delayed until 70, that monthly benefit would jump to $3,720 a month. Now, that's important because all the cost of living adjustments are compounded on the higher benefit. So if the cost of living adjustments average about 2% over the next 8 years, that's between 62 and 70, that benefit would jump to $4,350 a month. That's a huge number when you think about the cost of delaying or taking early. Now, you want to delay these things because it means more money over your lifetime if you can. A lot of folks who have saved up money for retirement might tap into their savings first to delay Social Security because it is a guaranteed paycheck that has inflation-protected income. So you want to think about what's the optimal way to do that. Now, we can help you with that. You can go to our website, spendlifewell.com, request a consultation, which is free, and we can talk to you about the best way to claim Social Security. Because if there's over 22,000 different ways to draw your benefits if you're married or have been married, you want to think about those options here. So you can maximize your benefits in a number of different ways, because remember I said that they average the highest 35 years, and there's a couple of points factors that they use and so forth. But what if you didn't work 35 years? What if you didn't work 35 years? Say you were a stay-at-home mom, you're running the household, raising kids, which is a wonderful thing to do. What if you didn't have 40 credits or 35 years worth of earnings? Well, think back to your school days. If I forget to turn in an assignment, it's going into my 6 weeks average, right? That 0 is going into my average. So the same thing is true. If you don't have 35 years worth of work history, then that 0 will go into your average on the calculation of your monthly benefit. So that's important. So you might be able to work a little bit longer. You also want to check your statement to make sure that all the years that are there. I mean, sometimes back in the 80s and early 90s, the Social Security Administration would hand enter data from your tax return into the system. Sometimes they miss something. If you're self-employed, we see that quite often, that self-employment income was not reported correctly to the Social Security Administration. So you may have a 0 there, or maybe the wrong number. You want to make sure that that's accurate. If you need to adjust that or appeal that, you want to make sure you contact Social Security soon. Also, too, one of the things that a lot of folks don't understand is that your Social Security benefit may be subject to income tax. One of the biggest areas that we talk about here is for those folks that decide to draw Social Security benefits before they reach their full retirement age. And for most of you listening, that's somewhere between 66 and 67 if you haven't already started drawing. And they want to keep working. Now, a lot of times is that they'll say because they want to save that money, but I find often that doesn't actually happen. You find things to spend that money on, and it doesn't go into savings. So if you decide to continue to work before your full retirement age and you started your benefits, then you might have your benefits adjusted. So in 2022, if you make more than $19,560, you will have $1 in benefits withheld for every $2 that you earn over $19,560. Now, that benefit will be readjusted at full retirement age, and you shouldn't let that earnings test discourage you from working. But if you want to avoid that earnings test, wait until you've reached your full retirement age or later to apply for those benefits if you're still working. I think that's one thing people don't realize, that they're costing themselves money when they do that. And that's kind of a tax, if you will. It's not a direct tax, but it is a penalty, if you will, for doing that. So what Social Security looks at is they look at when they're determining taxation, they look at your provisional income, or at least the IRS does. Provisional income is different than just simply your adjusted gross income, which you can easily find on your tax return. If your provisional income is over $44,000, now that includes your adjusted gross income, plus they add in half of your Social Security benefit, plus any tax exempt interest or anything. If you're married filing joint and you're making over $44,000 in provisional income, up to 85% of your Social Security benefit might be subject to income tax. And that depends on how much other income you have. If you're single, that number is provisional income over $34,000. Okay. Now, that's not an 85% tax. That is simply up to 85% of that Social Security benefit can be subject to ordinary income tax rate. So there's a lot of ways that you can maximize your benefits or minimize the taxes on Social Security benefits. You can reduce other income if you're using tax advantage investments, but not municipal bonds. Those are things that are factored into that provisional income calculation. You can anticipate these required minimum distributions, which now for most of us hit at age 72. That's where Uncle Sam says, hey, you've had all this tax deferred growth in these IRAs and 401ks. We're going to make you start withdrawing those things. And that for many is the ticking time bomb. They're not anticipating that, and they're thinking they're going to get extra income until tax time. It can be a real problem. It can really mess up with your lifestyle and your standard of living in retirement. You can think about maybe converting some of your traditional IRAs over to Roth IRAs. That's a possibility. And if you delay Social Security, that just reduces the number of years that the benefits are subject to the income tax. So you can do other things. You can pay down your debt. You can adopt a simpler lifestyle, but you still Just because you stopped working does not mean that you have to not manage your taxes throughout retirement. So, it also might cause your Medicare might cause your check to shrink. We know that in 2022, it's $170.10. You want to make sure you do that and be aware of that. You should always try to maximize your benefits, especially if you're a couple. And for those of you that are watching on social media and stuff, I'm holding up my hand to the camera. There's a higher benefit, right? And a lower benefit. And sometimes they're equal, but if you have a higher benefit and a lower benefit, what happens when one of you dies? Well, it's real simple. Social Security has a way of explaining it, much more complicated and so forth. But it's generally, in general, the lower benefit goes away. When you are a couple and you die, one of you dies, doesn't matter who, the lower benefit goes away, and the surviving spouse claims the higher benefit or a portion of that. So wouldn't it make sense to maximize that higher benefit, right? Maybe it's that higher earner's benefit that you need to delay on so that you create a good survivor benefit for the surviving spouse. It might be you, it might be your spouse that goes first. But the point is, maximize that. So what happens? Let's talk about, just for a second in the remaining time of the show, let's talk about spousal benefits. And it does work the same way for divorce spousal benefits as long as you were married for at least 10 years. So, and there's some other rules involved there. So let's just say that John, his primary insurance amount is $2,000 a month. And his wife, Jane, her benefit's only $800. Well, Jane can file for a spousal benefit and get up to one half of John's. So now she can't get hers and John's. It's one half of John's. So if Jane's insurance amount or monthly benefits $800, Jane can apply for spousal benefits and collect $1,000 instead of her $800. Now, this is really kind of complicated. Like I said, it does work for divorced spouses as well. There's lots of rules there. I encourage you to give us a call to talk more about Social Security or anything that's on your mind. Visit us on our website at spendlifewell.com. We want to help you with Social Security because it's so important. It's such a critical part of your financial life and retirement. As always, folks, we're here every Saturday morning, 8 a.m. here on the bridge. Give us a call anytime in our office, 800-491-4508, 800-491-4508, or visit us on the web at spendlifewell.com. Lord willing, we'll be back next week. And I want to thank you for listening to the Spend Life Well show. Have a great day.